Hey there, history buffs. Today we're diving into a topic that's as American as apple pie, which ironically originated in Asia, but that's a story for another time. Apple pie has become a symbol of American culture, representing the nation's values and traditions. But just like the pie, America's history is a blend of different influences and stories. We're talking about how the United States, a nation founded on ideals of liberty and justice for all, ended up colonizing itself. The story of America's first colonies is a tale of ambition, struggle, and the quest for a new beginning. It's a story that shaped the very foundation of the country we know today. Picture this. It's the 17th century and European settlers arrive on the eastern shores of North America. These settlers came from various backgrounds, including England, France, Spain, and the Netherlands, each bringing their own hopes and dreams for a better life. They're looking for a fresh start, a chance to build a new life. They envisioned a land of opportunity where they could practice their religion freely, own land, and create prosperous communities. The promise of the New World was a powerful draw for many who faced hardships and persecution in their homelands. Little did they know, they were stepping into a land already teeming with diverse indigenous cultures. These indigenous peoples had been living on the continent for thousands of years, developing rich traditions, languages, and ways of life that were deeply connected to the land. These weren't empty lands ripe for the taking, but complex societies with their own languages, traditions, and relationships to the land. The indigenous peoples had established trade networks, agricultural practices, and social structures that were sophisticated and well adapted to their environments. These early interactions were a mixed bag. The settlers and indigenous peoples had to navigate a delicate balance of cooperation and conflict. The newcomers relied on the indigenous peoples for survival, learning essential skills such as farming techniques and knowledge of local resources. Sometimes there was cooperation and trade, as indigenous communities saw potential benefits in forming alliances with the newcomers. They exchanged goods, shared knowledge, and sometimes even formed military alliances to protect their mutual interests. But let's not sugarcoat it. More often than not, these encounters were marked by misunderstanding, mistrust, and ultimately, conflict. The settlers' desire for land and resources often clashed with the indigenous people's way of life, leading to violent confrontations and long-lasting animosities. The settlers, driven by a sense of entitlement and fueled by European ideas of superiority, began to encroach on indigenous lands, viewing the native inhabitants as obstacles to be removed. This expansion was often justified by the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that European settlers were destined to spread across the continent. And so began a pattern that would repeat itself throughout American history, the displacement and dispossession of indigenous peoples in the name of progress. This tragic cycle saw entire communities uprooted, cultures disrupted, and countless lives lost. It's a story that's often glossed over in textbooks, but it's a story we need to tell. Understanding this history is crucial for acknowledging the injustices faced by indigenous peoples and recognizing their enduring resilience and contributions to American society. Because to understand America today, we need to understand its past, even the uncomfortable parts. The legacy of the first colonies is a complex tapestry of triumphs and tragedies, shaping the nation's identity and values. So buckle up, my friends, because we're about to embark on a journey through the Wild West of American history. From the early settlements to the vast frontiers, we'll explore the stories of those who dared to dream of a new world and the impact they left behind. Get ready for an adventure through time, as we uncover the layers of America's past and the lessons it holds for our future. Fast forward to the 19th century, and the United States is a fledgling nation, eager to flex its muscles and expand its territory. The young republic, having recently won its independence, was brimming with ambition and a sense of manifest destiny, the belief that it was America's fate to expand across the continent. Enter the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. For a cool $15 million, a steal, President Thomas Jefferson doubled the size of the young nation, acquiring a massive chunk of land from France. This monumental deal was not just a real estate transaction, it was a bold statement of America's growing power and influence on the world stage. This land grab stretched from the Mississippi River all the way to the Rocky Mountains, encompassing land that would eventually become part of 15 states. Imagine the vast, untamed wilderness, rich with resources and opportunities just waiting to be explored and settled. Now you might be thinking, hey, that's great, more land for everyone. Well, not so fast. See, this land wasn't exactly empty. It was a diverse and vibrant region home to a multitude of indigenous tribes, each with their own unique cultures, languages, and histories. It was home to countless indigenous tribes who had been living there for centuries. But did anyone ask for their permission? Nope. The US government saw the land as a blank canvas for its expansionist dreams, disregarding the rich tapestry of life that already existed there. Their ancestral lands were simply absorbed into the growing nation, their voices largely ignored. Treaties were made and broken, promises were given and forgotten, leading to a legacy of mistrust and conflict that would echo through the centuries. The Louisiana Purchase was a pivotal moment in American history. It fueled westward expansion, opening up vast new territories for exploration and settlement. The promise of new land drew thousands of settlers westward, each seeking their own slice of the American dream. But it also set the stage for a tragic clash of cultures. As more and more settlers poured into the West, driven by dreams of land ownership and opportunity, they inevitably came into conflict with the indigenous peoples who called this land home. The resulting struggles were marked by violence, displacement, and a profound loss of life and culture for the Native American tribes. The consequences of the Louisiana Purchase were far-reaching. It not only reshaped the physical landscape of the United States but also its social and cultural fabric. The expansionist policies that followed led to the forced removal of Native Americans from their homelands, most infamously exemplified by the Trail of Tears. Today, the states that emerged from the Louisiana Purchase are integral parts of the United States, each with its own unique identity and history. The legacy of this monumental acquisition is a complex tapestry of growth, opportunity, and profound loss. As we reflect on this chapter of American history, it's crucial to remember both the triumphs and the tragedies that shaped the nation we know today. The Louisiana Purchase wasn't just about acquiring land, it was about fulfilling what many Americans saw as their God-given right to conquer the continent. This monumental acquisition doubled the size of the United States, providing vast tracts of land for settlement and cultivation. It was a bold move by President Thomas Jefferson, who envisioned an empire of liberty stretching across the continent. This belief, later dubbed Manifest Destiny, became a rallying cry for westward expansion. The term itself was coined in 1845 by journalist John L. O'Sullivan, who argued that it was America's manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. This ideology was not just a call to action, but a deeply ingrained belief that shaped American policy and attitudes for decades. It was the idea that the United States was destined, by some divine decree, to spread its dominion from sea to shining sea. This notion was visually represented in art and literature, often depicting settlers as heroic figures guided by divine forces. Paintings like John Gast's American Progress symbolize this belief, showing an angelic figure leading settlers westward, illuminating the dark wilderness with the light of civilization. Now let's be clear, Manifest Destiny was less about divine intervention and more about justifying the unjustifiable. It provided a moral veneer for actions that were often brutal and self-serving. Critics of the time, and many historians today, argue that it was a thinly veiled excuse for imperialism and conquest. It was a convenient excuse to ignore the rights of indigenous peoples, to paint westward expansion as a righteous crusade rather than a land grab. The narrative of Manifest Destiny conveniently overlooked the fact that the land was already inhabited by diverse and complex indigenous cultures. These communities had their own systems of governance, spirituality, and ways of life that were systematically disrupted and destroyed. It fueled a sense of entitlement among settlers who believed they were bringing civilization to the wilderness, even as they displaced and dispossessed the people who were already there. Settlers often saw themselves as pioneers of progress, taming a wild and untamed land. This belief was reinforced by government policies that encouraged westward migration, offering land grants and other incentives to those willing to move west. Manifest Destiny wasn't just an abstract idea, it had real-world consequences. It influenced legislation such as the Homestead Act of 1862, which provided 160 acres of public land to settlers for a small fee, provided they improved the land by building a dwelling and cultivating crops. This act accelerated the displacement of indigenous peoples and the transformation of the American landscape. It led to the displacement of countless indigenous communities, the destruction of their homelands, and the erosion of their cultures. Entire tribes were forced onto reservations, often in areas far removed from their ancestral lands. The impact of this displacement is still felt today, as indigenous communities continue to fight for their rights and recognition. It's a dark chapter in American history, one that's often overshadowed by romanticized tales of pioneers and cowboys. These stories, while capturing the adventurous spirit of the time, often gloss over the harsh realities faced by both settlers and indigenous peoples. The legacy of Manifest Destiny is complex, marked by both progress and profound injustice. Hold on to your hats, folks, because things are about to get wild. In 1848, gold was discovered in California, sparking a frenzy of westward migration that would forever change the landscape of the American West. People from all walks of life, farmers, shopkeepers, teachers, you name it, packed up their belongings and headed west, lured by the promise of striking it rich. This mass migration, while a testament to the human spirit of adventure and ambition, had a devastating impact on indigenous communities. Miners, hungry for gold and driven by greed, encroached on indigenous lands, polluting rivers, depleting resources, and spreading diseases that ravaged native populations. The gold rush, while a boon for the U.S. economy, came at a steep human cost. The story of the gold rush is a microcosm of the broader narrative of American expansion. It's a story of ambition, opportunity, and the relentless pursuit of wealth. But it's also a story of exploitation, displacement, and the tragic consequences of unchecked greed.